2 minutes. And there's a big knee. And another shot. Ruthless Robbie Lawler!
Having earned a reputation as a true berserker of the steel cage, Robbie Lawler is one of the most intimidating fighters in the history of sports. For more than 20 years, Ruthless has been a purveyor of extra-class knockouts. Today, we get to know finest works of Robbie Lawler's brutal art. Ruthless began his career in 2001 when some of the MMA fans were not even born yet. During this incredibly long time, Robbie Lawler managed to fight in many different outstanding promotions. Robbie managed to be in the UFC twice, but it was after his second coming that his best performances in the league began. Josh Koscheck, a tough fighter, a perennial top 10 of the last few years, agreed to welcome the prodigal son of the UFC. When you go into the cage with a four-time All-American, it's hard not to expect a wrestling. Lawler was clearly ready for Josh's onslaught, but even that didn't save him from wiping the canvas in the first minutes of the fight. The fresh Koscheck was very persistent and just didn't let his opponent get up. Then Robbie thought, why should I try to get up?
Oh, big punch. Oh, hang on, Joe. Looking to finish it. It is all over. Robbie Lawler.
That very minute, one hammer fist after another fell on Josh's head, which eventually finished him off. Robbie's return to the ranks of the world's top promotion has been more than successful. In just 1 year, he had 3 wins, including over young Rory McDonald, and after that, he got the title shot against Johnny Hendricks. Big Rig was in his prime and was able to stand against even such an uncompromising fighter as Lawler. The loss to the champion was unfortunate, but not fatal. Not even rested for 3 months, Ruthless returned to the cage against veteran Jake Ellenberger with a 3-2 record in his last fights. The first 5 minutes were low-key, the fighter scouting the situation. But then, Robbie dispelled the audience's boredom. The former challenger exploded with a dynamite series from his hands and peppered them with powerful knees that worked best on Jake. Each of such volley caused Ellenberger misery, and in the final round, the control shot went out.
2 minutes. And there's a big knee. And another shot. Trying to finish this fight. He's done. It is all over.
The decisive knee connected to Jake's head like a warhead, and the encounter was over.
Ruthless Robbie Lawler.
Robbie has been competing in Strikeforce for 3 years with mixed success. During that time, he managed to share the cage with many fighters we know. But now, probably no one remembers the name Adian Amagov. At that time, Boris was the most promising welterweight from Russia, who at the same time was going with only 1 defeat in his career. A victory over a guy like Lawler could have brought Adlin closer to the American public, so the fight was crucial for him. Adlin, who had an outstanding sambo base, took his opponent down in the first minute. Robbie has always been famous for his ability to get up from under wrestlers, and this time he also tried a back on the feet quickly, but instead got a hard illegal knee. Amagov was stripped of his score, and the guys tensely continued the fight. Robbie knew that in an unclear situation, Adlin would most likely go for the takedown, so he repeated the trick that will make Jorge Masvidal famous in the future. Ruthless lunged at Boris, and Adlin dived to his feet, but got a fierce knee. That night, only one trick decided the outcome of the fight.
Ruthless Robbie Lawler.
Ruthless left the UFC with 2 losses in a row, but despite that, he was welcomed with open arms into the Super Brawl regional promotion for an immediate title fight against Falanico Vitali. Nico was in the category of fighters who can be kings at the regional level, but immediately got screwed when they get to the top tier. It was for this reason that he spent most of his career in the minor leagues, one of which he faced Robbie in. Ruthless was a real bundle of athletic anger and rage. He immediately rushed to attack, but his wrestling-savvy opponent stopped him. The guy spent the entire first round in a passive clinch, and Vitale distinguished himself with a transfer. The second segment finally saw a showdown on the hands between the fighters, with Robbie looking preferable. At the very end of the 5 minutes, Falnico was already exhausted and wanted to just wait for the bell. But the wild Robbie cooked up a different ending.
Good right, another right, a left, and Nico goes down.
Robbie exploded with a knee and afterwards ruined the local fighter with a couple of hooks.
But Robbie Lawler, what a win for him. Like you talked about his...
From 2005 to 2008, all Robbie did was bounce around small promotions, getting title fights and becoming the middleweight champion. By the same token, in September 2007, Lawler also easily made it to the Elite XC promotion, where he split the cage with Mario Hua. The veteran and brother of the famous Morocco had just recently left the now extinct Pride and was looking for a new home. The two local MMA stars were given a full 5 rounds and a belt on the line to deal with each other. While the fight was at sniper range, Ninja was pestering his opponent with his kicks, but he was having a hard time during the closing distance. Robbie's punches were much harder and more accurate, and the further the fight went on, the slower Hua became, and Lawler was getting to him more and more. In the third segment, Mario was completely exhausted, and that's when Robbie didn't miss his chance. A scary uppercut, and then Robbie landed some more obviously unnecessary shots on the ground. After his leaving from the UFC in 2004, Robbie had time to appear in several smaller promotions, and after a couple of years, he even made it to Japan, where he was invited to perform in the legendary Pride Arena. Opposing the American Gangster was Joey Villaseñor, who recently had not lost 4 years in a row. But the win streak was nevertheless interrupted, and Smoking was about to restore it. The fight didn't last 30 seconds. Lawler with a nightmare knee, another finish in the pocket of the legend. The glorious and distant year of 2013, Robbie Lawler had just recently ended his Strikeforce epic and returned to the UFC, which had been his home for nearly a decade. The Berserker's return marked with the defeat of Josh Koscheck, and the second opponent for the returning Robbie was Bobby Volker, who also recently came from under the wing of the UFC's main rival. Lawler outclassed Bobby by leaps and bounds, both in stand-up and in wrestling. After getting the transfer easily, Ruthless held his opponent at the fence, where he crushed his nose with just one accurate knee. Breaking the distance, Robbie continued to escalate and delivered stunning head kicks. Volker was still able to defend against those shots in the first segment, but in the second, a timing balanced and quick kick turned off Bobby's nervous system.
Ruthless Robbie!
Melvin Manhoff is one of those fighters who went crazy before and during fights simply because he liked it, not because of the image. Before every fight, the Dutch MMA legend would come out with a dog collar which would intimidate the faint of heart, but not Robbie. Lawler was defeated in his last fight, so now he was ready to snatch his victory at all costs, even from a chain dog. The future legends moved around the cage in circular motions and periodically had mutual explosions with kicks. Manhoff's leg kicks were many times harder, and Robbie even staggered at one point, but Manhoff was in for a nasty surprise. Lawler waited and extinguished Melvin with just one accurate overhand right, a simple yet brilliant knockout.
And hit him right.
Since his Strikeforce debut, the future champion has alternated between wins and losses with a 2-2 record. Robbie took on veteran Matt Lindland, who was already a legend at the time. The thing is that the Olympic silver medalist had fought half of the best fighters of that time, from Belfort to Emelianenko himself, and he was very successful in his home middleweight division, even in the top leagues of the world. Unfortunately, it wasn't Lindland's day.
But Lindland stands
Determined to stay in the stand-up with a brawler, Matt was already knocked down at the 45th second of the fight. Then Lawler put him to sleep with a final shot in the fall.
Lawler.
The first bout between Robbie and the second Canadian Big Hope, Rory McDonald, took place at UFC 167 and ended in Lawler's favor by split decision. Just 2 years later, the fighters were destined to meet again, but this time Ruthless was already in champion status, defeating Hendricks in a rematch. Everyone knew we were in for a competitive and mesmerizing fight, but the result turned out to surpass all expectations. The best fight in the history of mankind. That's how experts dubbed this welterweight title war. Both fighters operated with maximum concentration and delivered their best punches. In the first half of the famous showdown, the advantage was on the side of the more accurate Rory, but Lawler throughout the fight was breaking his opponent's nose, and with each new punch, McDonald's face changed more and more. By the beginning of the fifth round, the Canadian Superboy was just a bloody ghost of himself, but Lawler, also badly beaten, continued to press, and with one of his easy jabs, made Rory lie down in unbearable pain.
He's hurt. This may be it. That's it. That's it. It's all over.
Finishing off McDonald, Robbie Lawler gave off his legendary Champion's Gate. This is a fight that every MMA fan must watch.
And still.
If you liked the video, then suggest in the comments a video about whom you want to see on our channel next.
Oh, big punch. Oh, hanging Joe. Looking to finish it. It is all over. 2 minutes. And there's a big knee. And another shot. Trying to finish this fight. He's done. It is all over.
Mixing things up.
There you go again. That's it. And it is all over. Wow. Head kick knockout.
Possibly beginning to limp down again. Manhoff continues overhead. And right on the button, but Lindland stands up. Lindland gets knocked down, and he is out. Ruthless Robbie Lawler.